Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome to this beautiful group. Majority of you are from Australia, and I believe that there's some of you that are from other parts of the world. From previous visits to this group, I know that there was some from the Philippines. I think, or living in the Philippines. I think it was someone from Canada at some point, or the United States. But as we comment through and as we speak in this open forum, we'll see. You can introduce yourself and tell us where you are speaking to us from. So my idea in this open forum, as I said, is to discuss about different topics, especially under the umbrella of the universal salvation of humanity. Now, this might come as a shock to people that might listen to this podcast through YouTube in our Spanish channel, though it's in English today. But I want to perhaps start with the ball rolling with the concept of new truth. When they speak about new truth or new light, there is a misunderstanding, I believe, among many religious institutions, especially those that have already established themselves with a number of set doctrines and dogmas and fundamentals and creeds. In order for them to survive, they need to defend those creeds, those fundamentals, those statutes of and legislations of behavior, beliefs, etc., that forms the walls that confine the denomination, whichever the name it is, whichever denomination it is. So if a new light or a new truth, as sometimes is defined, comes into the picture, the natural reaction or the most standard reaction to protect the denominations is this: if there is a new light coming into our midst, that new light should not, cannot, and negate the previous light that we already got until this point. And you probably, some of you have heard that before.
Yes.
If somebody claims a new light, it's only going to be a new light if ratified, to start with, the previous light, the previous truth. If it doesn't ratify it, then there's no truth in that light, in that new truth, and therefore we need to attack it and we need to defend it. There's a reason for it, of course, because if a new light contradicts the old light or the old truth, then we need to question again our creeds, our beliefs, our statutes, fundamental, our very existence. And then questions like, well, then if that is true, then what's the point of having our denomination is still going? So, I mean, obviously it is a defense mechanism. It's quite understandable that is a reaction from religious organizations and religious denominations. Very understandable. But now I just want to bring to you a concept. In Spain, when you are a child, if you lose a tooth, because you're 6 years of age and you lose a tooth, your mom and dad will tell you to put that tooth underneath your pillow, because someone is called Ratoncito Perez, which is the little mouse called Perez, is going to come in the middle of the night and is going to put, when I was growing up, in the 70s and the 80s will be pesetas, but these days it will be, it will give you €1, or it will give you two euros, or with inflation, maybe 10 euros. I don't know. So that is a truth that it is believed by that child when he's 5, when he's 4, when he's 6, when he's 7. At some point, there is a new truth that comes into the picture, a new light that comes into the picture. And when the new light comes into the picture and the child realizes that it is actually, in fact, mom and dad that are trying to compensate your bravery because you allowed your tooth to be pulled out, or whatever, and they're giving you a gift just to tell you how much they love you, and they give you a token of that love by putting some money under your pillow. That it wasn't a little mouse that came and left that dollar there. The new truth is not supporting the old truth. It's actually negating it,
Mm-hmm.
negates the truth completely. But I'm going to go further than that. It might be exceptions to the rule, but in the great majority of cases that you can think of, new truths negate the old one. So
Mm.
you can be a child in Australia growing up until the age of 7, 8, even 9, and believe that on the 24th to the 25th of December, there is a guy dressed in red with a long white beard, and you are going to put a glass of milk and a cookie. And that guy, in exchange of the glass of milk and the cookie, is going to leave you some presents. That is the truth that you're going to believe. At some point, you'll go to the school and somebody will tell you, no, no, that's your mom and dad. And at some point, you even read about the history of St. Nicholas and this, that, and the other. And the new truth will negate the old truth. At some point, you were told in Europe, at least in Spain, where I come from, you were told that the babies, you were told by your teachers, because your teachers were not involved in sexual education to children that were like 5 or 6. So they will tell the story that the parents will tell the children, same story, that the children will come on the beak of a bird that came from Paris, and it will be wrapped up in a piece of cloth, and that's where the babies come from. At some point, the child will believe that there was a big bird that looks like a flamingo. I don't know what type of bird. I know the name in Spanish, but I don't know the. I was told that story. Hollywood will tell through the cartoons that story. You know, like Disney will tell that story to the children. The little Dumbo, the Dumbo movie. The little Dumbo will come with a bird, and there you go. That's the truth. But at some point, you will go through reproductive education and sexual education, and life will come to a point in which you realize that mommy and daddy are having some interchange of DNA, and that's where the baby comes from. And it comes from the mommy's tummy, and it's not actually in the tummy, it's in the uterus and things like that. So the new truth invalidates the old truth. Now, I can go on and on and on and on. The the concept of new truth needs to ratify our old truth in the great majority of cases is false. In fact, without getting into controversy, because I don't know the audience that I'm talking to, and I don't want to go into this particular subject because it could be Pandora's box. If you believe the literal interpretation, both of especially the Old Testament, and you can see some of those reminiscences in the New Testament. If you believe in the literal interpretation of the Old Testament and the entire Bible, you need to conclude that the earth is flat. So it is not surprise, though, that the literal interpretation of the Bible will lead many of the people that believe these days that the earth is flat. And I'm not going to go into that controversy, okay, because that's not something that we'll like to sort of waste our time into debating that. I respect everyone's opinion on that matter. The point being that you cannot be a literal interpreter of the Old Testament and believe that the earth is round. You can believe that the round in terms of like a globe, because there is some comments in the Old Testament about the circuit of the earth. I think you believe in the book of Job. But when you talk to people that believe that the earth is flat, but it's round. It's not a globe. It's round. And in fact, the biggest percentage of people that believe that the earth is flat are actually literal Bible believing Christians, the great majority of them. And they will have a Bible verse for it. There is no way in the paradigm, in the images of an earth that is moving around the sun, that Joshua's story can be taken literal. There's no way. Because the speed in which the earth rotates on itself, and it actually travels around the sun, to stop the sun, you need to, in fact, stop the earth. And the only way you can do that is through the earth being flat. You can't have the earth being round to do that. Now, I don't care if the earth is flat or is round. I don't care in the big extent. But from a scientific point of view, I actually don't believe that it is flat. I don't care if it is, and if it is, fantastic. I play either way. I'm not going to debate. I'm not dogmatic on all those things. I actually believe that there's enough in scientific, mathematical evidences, at least, that disproves the Earth being flat, and it most plausible through mathematics that there is an orbit and so on. I can believe that, but then I need to go to the story of Joshua and interpret the story. Because if I take the story of Joshua, stopping the sun for 2 hours or until the battle was won, etc., if I take that literal, then I cannot take both things. I cannot take one truth and the other truth. One will change the other. You cannot take Jesus' words, love your enemy, and let the little children come to me, and take the book of Psalms, get the little babies and throw them against the stone, and say that both truths are truth. We can't, because they are totally opposite. Love your enemy and let the little children come to me. It gets played out in a particular way, and getting a baby and throwing it against the stone, against a rock, is played out in a total different. The outcome is totally different. The manifestation of those verses are different. One gives love and care and nurture to a child. The other one gets the child and throws the child of the Babylonians against the rock. Different verses, different manifestations of those verses, different outcome. In one outcome, you have a baby that has been nurtured, that is balanced, that it doesn't have mental traumas and things like that. In the other, you end up with a dead child. You can't say that both things are part of the same truth, because they are negating each other. So when we're talking about universal salvation, I'm just going to start opening now the open forum and just put comments, make comments or ask questions or whatever. You can raise your hand or just open your microphone when you wanna speak. But we need to be very careful, because every denomination today has their own membership numbers. From the biggest, which will be the Roman Catholic Church. I'm talking about Christianity in particular. Roman Catholic Church, then you'll have the Orthodox, will probably be the second one. Then will be somehow the Anglican Church, Pentecostal Church, and from then, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventist, and so on and so forth, Methodists, and so on, and up to thousands and thousands of them. They all have their denomination and they all have their truth. When you believe in the universal restoration of humanity, our church denominations, as someone that believes that the entire humanity is going to be restored, currently among the living is 8 billion. Because all of a sudden, you don't have 1 billion point 2 Catholics, and you don't have 800 million of Orthodox and X amount of Anglicans or whatever. If you can't be an Anglican restricted to a membership number, you cannot be a Pentecostal restricted to a membership number and believe that entire humanity is going to be restored, and trying to sort of combine both things, because they are two worlds on total collision. And the history of the earthly church proves that. By the end of the first century, and I will actually put a comment on the once the video gets released as a podcast, I will put a website for resources. Um, I'll make sure that I spell it correctly on the comment that I will write. Is 10maker 777, I think it is .com or something along those lines. So along those lines, it will be down in the comment section in the video once we upload it on YouTube. And it's a resource of the historical beliefs of the earthly church and the evolution of those beliefs. And in that historical progression, there were five or six schools where, after the death of the apostles, the church as a community of believers, not as a denomination, but as a community of believers, had their own centers of ideas and developments of the doctrines of Christ. 4 out of the 5 or 4 out of the 6, whichever way it was, believed in the complete, total restoration of humanity. So when we're talking about new ideas, the restoration of the entire humanity is not a new idea anyhow. It's actually at the core of Christianity on the early church. One or two of those institutions or centers of Christian education and Christian thought believed on the total annihilation of great part of humanity and the salvation of just a few by eternal complete extermination. And the other believed in very much the same thing, but the continuous suffering of the great majority. So 2 were out and very restrictive. 4 of them believe in the universal salvation of the entire humanity. And those 4 that believed it were closed down by the other 2. One of the other 2 was set in Rome. So the school of thought that overtook the other 4 was the school of thought based in Rome. So we're not talking about a new truth here. We're talking about trying to recover an old truth that will challenge, if you belong to a particular denomination or particular dogmatic creed, it will challenge those truths. And there will be not many things, theologically speaking, that will still remain standing on the old truths that you have, while the new truths of the restoration of the entire humanity will come into light. Because the church of the universal salvation is not a denominational church. It is a church that combines the entire humanity, in this case for us, of the living. When you're looking at the average denomination with the average local congregation, you will notice this. You will be in the local congregation and you will have affinity and friendship more with some people more than others. You will think similar more with some more than the others. Though you're all part of the same denomination, you might invite some people for lunch more often than others. You put up with some, while you are delightful to enjoy time with others. You want to make sure that your child doesn't play with that child from your denomination, while you're happy for another member children to come to your place to play with your children. So we have social dynamics happening in a local church. So when we believe in a universal salvation, that church becomes earth. And I deal more with my neighbor across the road than with both neighbors on both sides. I'm very polite with everyone, but the one across the road, he comes to my place and he does some tailing and does some plumbing and he does some electrical work and I'll go to his place and help him and so on. I'm friends at work with some people while others are just co-workers. So the same dynamics, but in a much, much, much bigger scale. I'm more, I've got more affinity with some people in the world and less affinity with others. I will allow some people's children to come and play with my children while, I'll rather stay away from others. I'm trying to be nice with everyone, of course, but, I've got a better feeling with some people and not as good feeling with other people and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden, I, in my particular experience, moved out of a local congregation of a few people and I changed my paradigm shift that all of a sudden now my church is the entire earth. It's 8 billion people. It is interesting because when you belong to a particular denomination, you say, oh, the good thing about belonging to a particular denomination is that you can go to Germany, you just go to that denomination and you go, look, I need a place to stay. And, somebody might offer you a place to stay. Yeah, but you know what? With the concept that I travel, I can go to Germany and I can go to a hotel and I can be nice to the receptionist in the hotel. I can, I've got the whole world. I don't need to limit myself to just a small group. I see humanity as my brothers and my sisters. Some I like more than others. Some I have more things in common than others. But it's entire humanity. That's my church. So that's my current church. My current church is called Earth because I believe in the restoration of all earth. And the same way, same dynamics that you see at a local small church of 50 people, that you'll have some people that you go, oh man, that guy is, I know that guy is not on drugs, but man, the mind is not working, he's cooking something. And you got other people that are more balanced, people that are more extremist, and so on. So you have in the world. You have the fanatics in the world. You have the fanatics in the local church. You have the crazy guys in the world. You have the crazy guys in the church. You got the adulteress in the world. You got the adulteress in the church. You got the hypocrites in the world. You have the hypocrites in the church. So my church is no longer a 50 people group and 8 million worldwide denomination, and I haven't guessed the 8 million, by the way. That is actually the real figure. If you hear, that is closer to the real figure, between 8 to 10 million people worldwide if you belong to the Seventh-day Adventist denomination, not 20. The real figure is between 8 to 10 million around the world. That's closer to the real figure. That's the real estimate currently. So when I can have 8 billion, when I can go to Vietnam for holidays and go to the marketplace in Vietnam and understand that person that is cooking on the streets for me is also my brother and my sister. All of a sudden, rather than just being restricted on my beliefs, the world just opened up. So we'll start with some comments, some questions that you might have. You either can directly open your microphone, or if you want me to sort of give you the platform, you can raise your hand with this little symbol that Zoom provides, raising your hand. And we can start with that. So as I said, this is for everybody to contribute.
Good morning. I just have, a statement, I suppose, but can be talked about. People talk about free will. And something that I've been contemplating recently is the Bible talks about the potter and the clay. And the potter is Christ. We are the clay. Does the clay tell the potter how to be made, or does the potter make and mold the clay? So where does free will come into that? I believe the Creator creates all of us, and we do we turn out to how he wants to us. So people that talk about, oh yes, but free will, is a bit of a myth, really, isn't it?
It is in the sense that it is actually definitely portrayed. So I think I mentioned it at some point, maybe in one of the previous podcasts, that if you are in jail and you're seeking parole, you want to make sure that your lawyer arrange the meeting with the judge that is going to study your case. After that judge has had lunch. Now, the case is the same. You are the same individual. The case against you is the same, but the blood sugar levels of the judge is not the same. So if he's hungry and he wants to go for lunch and now you show up, he doesn't have time for you. He's going to say, no, go back. So this is not me guessing. This is actually scientifically studied. There is certain things. Now, there is in the hospital. I see it because I work in surgery. Sometimes the day takes longer than the list. So we've got a list of cases to go. And, there's some interruptions here and there. Everybody's tired. It's 6 o'clock and we still have 2 or 3 people to go. If I was me, obviously I'm the one that is in surgery with everyone else. But if I was me and I was due to have my operation at 3 and it's 7 o'clock and they're going to get me there at 7 o'clock and I have the possibility, it's not an emergency, it's like elective surgery, I'll cancel it and say, rebook me for another day. Because at 7 o'clock in the afternoon, the decision making of that staff personnel, those 5, 6 people, 7 people in surgery for orthopedic surgery, is not going to be the same after 12 hours of standing under the same light, tired, hungry. The day is over and it's 7 o'clock. They're not going to do the same job. So their will to help you is impaired. But beyond that, I'll tell you one thing, Glennis, that psychologically speaking, if you are driven, if your power drives your employees, if your power drives your family members to make decisions on 2 choices, from the stream of either my way or the highway, to, you can eat the red pill or the blue pill. You can vote Democrat or you can vote Republican. It is just a fictitious illusion of free will, but it's not. And the proof is actually the American politics today. The only third option was the son of Bobby Kennedy and nephew of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Jr. He has not been given platform in the media for his elective for his program and so on. So obviously they only had a 5% impact on the people. So it's not free will, because why is probably the best president of America is the one that he has the intellect, he has the administration capabilities, but he's probably working at a company as a manager in a company in Detroit or in somewhere else, and he's never going to be given the opportunity to be the president of the country, though the capabilities of that person are there. The saddest thing is probably that the cure of cancer could be in the head of a child in Africa that today his only care is, where am I going to get food to eat and survive today. And that brilliant guy in Africa, we will never know his name. He might not even get to 21 years of age, but he was brilliant. But he was born in Nigeria in a dumpster. And so free, and not just that, but when not just the world, but when your management skills offers your employees, either this or that, nothing else, no alternative ideas. You got black or white, you got the red or the blue, and so on. When we go and give free will to our children, and we'll say, well, you either eat your broccoli or you put your pajamas and you go to bed. It's free. You're free to choose. It's not. Because the options are not coming from him. The options are coming from mom and dad with the illusion that is free will. But it's not. It's not real free will. Nebuchadnezzar presented in Daniel chapter 3 the illusion of free will. You go and you worship the image. You say that I'm great. You say that I'm beautiful. You say that I'm the best king ever. You say that I'm... Okay. Now, you have the opportunity not to do it. And you will go straight into the fire. So when you think of Nebuchadnezzar, I mean, any common sense will think of the God that religion has portrayed to the people. You worship God because he is good. Worship God because he is beautiful. Worship God because he loves you. Worship God because he gave his son for you. Worship God because he has the best plans for your life. Worship God. Now, you don't have to. He's not going to force you to worship him. Oh, okay. So what's the alternative? The alternative is you go to the fire. So in reality, the evolution of Christianity has moved away completely from Jesus Christ and what he came to reveal about God. And he has made of God Nebuchadnezzar, which is actually the king of Babylon. Because when you have a God that says you either worship me because I'm good, you worship me because I'm great, you worship me because it will be the best thing for you, you worship me because then you will have life and I will give you life in abundance. Okay, and what about if I don't worship you? Oh, well, then I'll burn you. Then I'll kill you. Then I will punish you. There's a stand-up comedian in South America. Somebody just sent me the video. He's a young man, very funny. He's on a wheelchair. And he has muscular atrophy. And so he's not just a solid person on a wheelchair. Obviously, meant all his life on that wheelchair. His body, cannot support his weight. So obviously atrophy on the muscle, atrophy on the bone, and things like that. Very skinny legs and so on. And he's a stand-up comedian. It belongs to a family of religious conservative people. And they said to him, if you want to do a stand-up comedian, you can do a stand-up comedian. But look, be very careful. The things that you say about church, don't make fun of church, don't make fun of religion. Because if you make fun of church and you make fun of religion, God might punish you. And the guy actually says that while he is sitting on a wheelchair, and he goes and said, come on, what is it going to do? Give me a flat tire on my wheelchair? I'm 28 years of age. I'm stuck to this wheelchair. Like he's going to punish me because I make a joke of religion. You know what I mean? So it's not a free will. It's not a free will, and it's not a religious freedom advocacy from religious institutions either. Because religious institutions, they only want religious freedom for their denomination and for their ideas and for their practices. But everybody wants to get married with freedom of opinion and freedom of thought and freedom of freedom of opinion. Everybody wants to marry that bride. But when that bride also marries someone else, then we get upset. When someone else's opinion is against our opinion, then we stop talking to that person. Then we give the cold shoulder to that person and things like that. And this is done by Christians that believe in freedom of choice, but they don't respect freedom of choice because they broadcast in a God that, in fact, going back to the original, just to wrap it up, if you are in a position of power, this is from psychology point of view. If you're in a position of power and you're selling the concept of freedom of choice by providing two opinions or two options, and those options are contradictory to each other. One is a reward and the other one is a punishment. The person that does that, so the father that continuously is doing that to the children, rather than sit down and say, look, you need to eat your broccoli because this is going to be good for you or whatever, like trying to reason with them, trying to sort of make them understand and make them adopt that belief, rather than continuously threats, like, okay, if you eat the broccoli, I'll give you the ice cream, but if you don't eat the broccoli, you go to bed. That type of behavior, the first thing on the list for diagnostics is narcissism. Narcissism is the first list of diagnostics of that type of behavior. It's a narcissistic behavior. And we have called that freedom of choice when it comes from a God, I will say, not in capital letters, that says I'll give you life. You worship me, I'll give you life. I'll give you plenty of life. I'll give you happiness. I'll give you everything. You don't worship me, I'll punish you, and I will burn you forever. If we were not talking about the concept of God, we will be and just the concept of a human being, that is the classic definition of a narcissist. And we have now made that classic definition of a narcissist, we have wrapped up God with it, and we have called that freedom of choice. It's not.
I just wanted to say that we say that God brought us unconditionally, but this is if God brought us and if we don't have God will be burned. This is not unconditional love.
Okay. I'm not 100% if I got everything right there. Jotek, God was conditioning. God conditions.
No, I see. We say that God will be unconditional love, but
yeah.
if God will burn people in hell, this is not unconditional love.
Yeah, correct. Yes. So yeah, we say God is an unconditional love, and then we make him to act conditionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
And to the we're making exactly good point. We make him act conditionally, and not just that, because we need to make sure. Remember what we mentioned in the beginning, like we don't want to let go of all truths, so now we need to insert new truth. So what was inserted to the strong legalistic approach of the old covenant? The concept of love and conditional love. So how do we now reconcile? Paul says in Galatians very clearly that you need to let go of the slave woman if you wanna join the free woman, as an allegory of the old covenant and the new covenant. But what has Christianity has done? There is no letting go of the old slave woman, and he wants to adopt the new woman. So now, how are we going to say that God, in that concept of modern of the kidnapping of Christianity and kidnapping of the teachings of Jesus by the religion of Christianity and the established religion of Christianity of the last couple of millennia, actually. How do they do that? Well, God is love. God has unconditional love. Okay, but he's going to burn the majority of the people. Yeah, because he loves them. And that's how they go around with it. Because he loves them, he's going to burn them.
Yeah. Because what people were saying that God won't heaven won't be heaven for people who are wicked, so God will rather be burned to be heaven because they have sin in their heart, but God is able to transform them that they will be happy in heaven.
That's right. They think it's an impossibility for God to transform them, so he has to destroy them instead, and that's love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But because they have added the love to their legalistic old covenants, they're not going to let go of that one. So they need to grab that one. They still need punishment. They say if there's not justice, then God is not just. And they're looking at justice in a total different scenario that what Jesus actually provides justice as. So now so God kills you because he loves you. The old abusive father that will just hit the child to such a degree, and as he's hitting the child, he says, "It hurts me more than you. I'm doing this because I love you." And the child is just bleeding, take it to the hospital with a broken leg. It hurt me more. They have made God in their own image.
Yeah, I think it's another comment on the free will thing. I was talking to my mum the other day, and we were mentioning how, it says that because of the first Adam, death came upon all mankind. So really, we had no choice in that. Horrible consequences, came about because of someone else. We didn't choose this. And it says in the very same way, in the second Adam, all humanity is redeemed, or it says, as in Adam, all death came upon all mankind, and in the second Adam, life, justification of life comes to all men. So in the same way, so if we didn't choose the horrible consequences that came from Adam, when it matters most about our free will, if we had a choice about anything, you'd think it would be whether or not we were born into a fallen planet with fallen free will. So then why, when it comes to our salvation and our rescuing, would we also need to choose, when we didn't exercise our freedom in the first Adam, so why would we need to in the second Adam in the instance of our salvation? So yeah.
Glennis?
No, I just said good point. I really like the way you said that.
Like when imagine your grandfather or your great grandfather, I don't know, like for those that are Australians for 4 or 5 generations here, he comes here as a settler, and he incurs in a debt, and then so that was like your great grandfather. Then your grandfather comes, and as your grandfather is born, he's born with the debt of the of his father, and then he cannot go over, he cannot clear that debt because of interest and the interest against him and whatever, and so the debt and inflation, it keeps on growing. Now you're born, let's say, in 1960. The moment they registered your name, they put the figure of the debt. Okay, the figure of the debt is you're born with your name, John Smith, born in 1960 in Orange, New South Wales, minus $2.5 million. That's your debt. You're born with your debt already. But the government is trying to convince you, look, yes, you were born with a debt. I'll tell you what, you have now your choice to clear that debt. And I said, hold on a second. What about just starting with no debt whatsoever? So I don't need to even have to question about how to clear my debt. Because you're already conditioning my decision by placing me in a particular situation. So now every decision that I make in my life from 1960 when I'm born with a $2.5 million debt because of my ancestors' accumulated debt and inflation, now all my decisions will be to clear that debt. And there could be a method to do so. It could be through work. It could be through, you just go up in the mountain and you ask the big president of Australia and you beg for his forgiveness and he will give you the forgiveness and things like that. Let's say it's as simple as that. Let's say that you just need to go to Canberra, in humiliation. So from Orange, you need to walk to Canberra, those few hundred kilometers. So you walk to Canberra in humility and you go up to Parliament House and then you go to the President of Australia and you ask for the forgiveness. Look, my great-grandfather did it and he clears the debt. Let's say he does. Let's say he clears the debt. All the decisions that you have made prior to ask for that forgiveness in search of clearing that debt are conditioned because of a debt that was imposed upon you from birth where you had no input whatsoever. So all the decisions that now I need to make in order to be safe forever, in order to gain my salvation, be saved, be a safe man and not a lost man and things like that, are all based on a debt imposed upon me from birth because somebody in the past ate an apple and the inflation has gone to the point of eternal fire upon my body. Like, man, talking about inflation from getting an apple from the wrong tree and stealing an apple from the owner of the apple that told me not to eat it to being born in the fire. Oh, man, like that inflation has gone crazy. It's not 2.5 million. It's just everlasting condemnation. Now, every decision that now I need to do on this earth to seek salvation is already conditioned because I'm already inflicted with a debt that is going to condition all my decision making in my life, for good or for bad. Because if I refuse that debt upon me, I said, "But I don't want it." But you still have it. Well, I don't want it. I said, "Well, you go to Canberra and he's going to forgive you. You just need to go to Canberra." I said, "But why? I want to go to Cairns. I don't want to go to Canberra. I want to go to Cairns." "No, but you need to go to Canberra if you really want to live. You want to from Orange. You need to go to Canberra so you can be safe and you can be debt free." So, but why? Because that's the only way. Because he believes in the freedom of choice. Because if you stay in Orange, you're going to perish. And if you definitely go to Cairns, or if you go to the Northern Territory, you go to Darwin, you're definitely going to perish because you're going in the opposite direction of where you're meant to be. And the question is, why? Why am I now conditioned? And that's when the story of the free will falls to pieces.
I said that
Can
Ezekiel, God said in Ezekiel that the sins of the fathers are not passed to the children.
Yeah. That's isn't that interesting? Ezekiel does say that the sins of the father should not be passed upon the children and vice versa, but all of a sudden, it does.
It does.
All of a sudden, it does. And it's interesting because think about it just from a Christian denomination point of view. Okay, let's go to give an example of a Protestant setting. You have a child that is 4 years of age, and that child has just started playing violin. And he wants to do a special song for a local Protestant congregation. How sweet, how beautiful, and he's just playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and he's playing, Amazing Grace, but very basic notes, with Amazing Grace, and maybe Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Two songs. And that Christian congregation is just amen, and this, that, and the other. Okay. Now, years pass by, and that child now is 20 years of age. And I'm going to tell you the story because this story is a real scenario. Okay? Now, that child is 20 years of age. The only reason why he now goes to his local church congregation, the one that he grew up with, is because there's still some youngsters that he grew up with and they're friends with them. And the only part that he likes is not the boring sermon and is not the judgmental looks from the people and things like that because he's wearing jeans or a shirt or whatever. The only part that he likes is because on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday morning, they gathered for choir practice and he loves to sing. So he's there for the choir practice, loves to sing. So he's the same guy. Now he's singing in the choir practice, and the board or the leaders or the elders or the pastors and so on talked to the guy and talked to the music leader and said, this boy, he's 21 years of age, he could not sing here. Why? Asked the leader. Said, because he's 21, he's been in this church forever, and he's not baptized. And he's there from the pulpit, from the platform, singing praises to God, but he's not even baptized. He's not even baptized or a member of our congregation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Neither was he when he was 4 with a piano, with a little violin. At some point through the evolution, the depth of humanity and the sin of Adam is just charged upon that boy. When he's 4, he's cute. When he's 20, if he's not a member of our congregation, if he doesn't have our beliefs, he cannot sing from that platform because that platform is holy. I think, it's just so man-made stuff that is just crazy. It's just crazy. Some other comments, some questions. It doesn't have to be on this topic, something that maybe has been bothering you or that you've been thinking through. If not, we can just drop it. Yeah.
I have another. Sorry.
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm just paralleling. So in the Old Testament, we've got the feast. We've got the feast of Passover, and then we've got tabernacles. One is representative of the grain harvest. The other is the summer fruits. We see in Revelation chapter 14 the harvest of the grain harvest. And then it goes on to say that the casting thy sickle, the grapes are ready for harvest. And people say, church people say that is the destruction of the wicked. But I actually wonder whether that is a parallel of maybe the wicked going through the lake of fire. It says that it goes through the wine press. Wine press is fruit. That's getting the wine out of the fruit. That's a good thing. So I see that as the harvest of all mankind. The two harvests, the church and the Gentiles, the righteous, Anyway, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I have to say that my personal opinion on this will be the following in regards to the book of Revelation as such. I'll tell you why we need to be very careful to be extremely dogmatic, as many churches on prophecy, they are dogmatic about it. I'll give you first an example from the previous chapter, from chapter 13, where the mark of the beast and the number of the beast, specifically the number of the beast, the name, the number, and the mark. But the number appears in Revelation 13, 666, towards the end of the chapter, verse 18. Now, the entire doctrine has been created out of that entire doctrine, which is the number 6. What does that represent? And so on. Entire email addresses have been created as a response to that doctrine. Like, my name is John Smith 777. because the 666 is the mark of the beast, so is the 777. Number plates have an issue with the 666 and so on. This is something that appears once in entire scripture, once in a book that has symbols all throughout. In a book that if you give that book to 100 people, they will end up with 100 different interpretations of many aspects within that book. So if you have a book that will give you, now working in the medical industry, we know that if a person has an anaphylactic reaction to a muscle relaxant through anesthetics procedures, the book tells us that we need to calculate the weight of the person for the adrenaline or epinephrine that we're going to place, how much epinephrine, how much of this, how much of for that, because of the weight and so on of the person, the capability, the airway is open and so on. So there's a book, there's a manual, there's step by step. And you are here in Victoria, you are in the United States of America, you are in Europe, you are in the Northern Territory Hospital, Darwin Public Hospital, or the private hospital there, and it will be exactly the same. And though they're all different people, they will all go back to the book and they will all administrate the same amount and they will do the same steps, etc., because there's a book that tells you so. You get the book of Revelation, and you don't get the same outcome, even within a particular denomination. You mentioned about church. You get that church, that local congregation, or if it's a local congregation that forms, is part of a denomination, so it will be many other local combinations. You'll get the theologians of that religious group. You get the pastors of the religious group. You got the average layman that likes to study the book of Revelation, things like that. You ask them all to write to you, what does this mean? And they will all come up with a slightly different idea. So, however, we know all the some denominations know all the final events to the little comma, and extract most of it from the book of Revelation, which is very significant because the genre, okay, and there's a level of similar genre with, I don't know if you ever read the writings of Nostradamus. Nostradamus is a well-known figure. Nostradamus is going to reveal the future, and he got this, that Napoleon was going to do this, and there was going to be submarines, and there was going to be planes and things like that. When you read Nostradamus, you can make Nostradamus fit into absolutely anything. You can get Google, the invention of Google, out of Nostradamus visions. You can get the invention of the iPhone out of Nostradamus visions. You can get the current conflict in Gaza and Israel. You can get it out of Nostradamus visions. There's people today within the Christian world that go to the book of Revelation and they can pinpoint exactly the Russian-Ukraine conflict, the Gaza conflict, the coming crisis, and the pandemic out of the 7 plagues and things like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They can pinpoint out. They can do all that. So we start with that in the book of Revelation. We need to be careful because it's not a manual clear enough, and we need to be honest to recognize that. If God wants to use the book of Revelation as a manual to go from A to B, He's giving us the worst manual, because we all start in A, which is start with the book, and then somebody tells you, no, you're starting from chapter 1. You need to start from chapter 12 because it's a chiastic structure. You say, oh, okay. No. You start this, and this is symbolic, and this is literal, and this is symbolic, and this is literal, and this is symbolic. Of course, the lake of fire is literal, but the harvest of the sickle is symbolic. I said, but it's in the same chapter, isn't it? So it is in the same chapter. You got the lake of fire. That's it. That's literal. But what about the harvest and the sickle? Oh, that's symbolic, of course. So, okay, well, what makes it symbolic? And because if it can actually make sense that it will be literal, then you need to go for the literal. If it doesn't make sense that it's going to be literal, then you have to go symbolic. So, okay, so to you, it makes literal sense that a whole lot of the whole world is going to place on a lake of fire, be conscious of it, not enter into shock, be able to remember all their sins, sustain life in suffering for X amount of time. Some people will even say forever. That makes sense in a literal sense to you? It doesn't. So when we're looking at Revelation 14, some people call that the message of the three angels. When you're looking at the chapter has at least seven angels, because the first angel, that is in verse 6 of Revelation 14, says, then I saw another angel. If you're walking in the desert and you're writing a letter, and then you said, then I saw another Muslim man, that means that somehow you saw previously one more, because the one that you see now is another. So the first angel is actually another angel. So at least there's one more. And then you have the three angels. Having the three angels there, those three angels, they give a warning. If you do not worship God but worship the beast, you're going to be thrown into the lake of fire, and so on and so forth. That's the warning. Okay. So let's say I'm of the position that I'm not going to worship that type of God, because I don't believe in a God that looks like the Babylonian Nebuchadnezzar. Either you worship me or I'll throw you in the fire. So let's say I don't worship that God. What should I expect? What I should expect is, in the end times, that he will throw me into the lake of fire. Well, if you keep on reading, because that was the warning. The warning is, you don't worship God, you worship the beast, you'll be thrown into the lake of fire. Okay. Let's say I don't want to worship that God because I believe that God is like Nebuchadnezzar. So I should expect to be thrown into the lake of fire. And I'm willing to do that. So I'm ready for it. I understand the contract. I'm ready for the consequences. But all of a sudden, you keep on reading, and now the warning goes into action. So the chapter actually relates the action. What's going to happen now? And he says, then another angel, so angel number angel number 5 by this time, because you got the three angels, one prior. So angel number 5. He goes and he claims to God, now is the time. Now is the judgment. Now the earth is going to be judged. Okay, fine. What should we expect? Now is when they're going to be thrown into the lake of fire. But that's not what happens. They warn me for something, and then the actual manifestation of that something that warned me about has nothing to do with a fire, has all to do with a wine press. Imagine the disappointment that I should be thinking. Say, hold on a second. The contract was, and I understood the contract, and I took my risk about it. The contract was, if I don't worship you, I'll be thrown into the lake of fire. Why are you throwing me into the wine press? I don't want that. That's not in the contract. Why? Because both are symbolic. So in the lake of fire, the language that is used there is an alchemist language, in which you have the residue being taken out, and you end up with gold. So how many will go to the lake of fire? Technically speaking, if we read the book of Revelation, it will be the whole world. So prepare to go through the refining fire. Okay. Yes. Which does, because all the draws, all the envy, all the narcissism, all the selfishness, all the insecurities, and so on, all those impurities that make our characters disgusting little creatures, more often than what we'll like to confess or admit. We'll go through that. So what comes out on the other end? It comes out the gold and it comes the silver, purified without the dross. So what happens on a wine press? Exactly the same thing. You put all the grapes on the wine press, and through the same process in the lake of fire, through fire in the other, through stepping on you, stepping, like through a pressure process, all the pulp, all the skin, all the seeds, all that pulp is left on one side. What comes onto the other side? New,
Yes.
fresh wine.
Wine.
Right.
In one sense, it comes the gold and the silver. The other sense comes the new wine. And say, but they're not the same. No, they're not the same in the literal sense. They're the same in principle. What do I mean by principle? We will go through sooner or later. We need to confront our own identities. We need to actually just confront our own inefficiencies, and understand them, not to actually blame ourselves in such a way that, oh, I'm disgusting and things like that, but just to understand where things. That's why I was acting that way. There's a lot of people that are walking around this life with post-traumatic stress disorder, and they never knew it because they never been in Afghanistan, they never been in Iran, they never been into Vietnam or a war or whatever. But they've been through the parents' divorce. They've been through losing a house. They've been through sickness of a partner. They've been through the loss of a child. They've been through so many things, and they need to push through it. And they are going through post-traumatic stress disorder. And the whole humanity, in one way or another, we, to different degrees, we're walking around with post-traumatic stress disorder, and we are behaving as a result from our conditioning because of our post-traumatic stress disorder, because this earth is fairly traumatic experience. And I think more than a punishment as such, a cruel punishment is a cruel reality check of why we did what we did, and we're finding the reason, the root cause of the problem, the root cause of the problems, and how through that root cause of our behavior we hurt these people, and that will affect us and things like that. And ultimately, we will be a better person, a clean person, healed from post-traumatic stress disorder that this earth is creating to a bigger or lesser degree to all of us. You don't need to go to Vietnam to experience it. You just need to bury your father at the age of 5. You just need to be at the funeral at the age of 8 of your grandfather, and you just need to be bullied at school. And you say, oh, well, you tough it up. No, tough it up is what they say to the shoulders, in the front when they're going through post-traumatic stress disorder. I was talking to a psychologist of the Defense Force that went to Vietnam, experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, then went back to the defense. And studied through the defense. He studied psychology, and then he treated for many, many years until he retired post-traumatic stress disorder. And he said, we're looking at post-traumatic stress disorder of someone that has been in conflict, like, let's say, from a military point of view, one of our soldiers that has gone to Afghanistan, and we think that guy is going to come back with post-traumatic stress disorder, and they said, we don't recognize that post-traumatic stress disorder happens at training, even if that person never goes to war. And I go, what? Explain that to me. I said, well, a natural individual, the normal reaction of an individual is fight, flight, or freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. So escape from the situation, just freeze in the situation, or just fight the situation. In training, we eliminate 2 of the 3 options. Because if you flight, you are a deserter and you will be punished. If you freeze, you're not going to be of any help to your military friends, and you're going to be shot in the head because you just froze. So in training, they eliminate the two responses of natural responses to danger. So he says, even if that man never goes to war, we already created a post-traumatic stress disorder because we already altered the response. When we force in a child to be in a position and that child cannot flee the situation, cannot fight because you're bigger, and cannot freeze because you're saying, okay, stop being shy, just come on, whatever. You say, well, it's just like everybody goes through that. Yes, everybody goes through that. And everybody has a buildup of post-traumatic stress disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders. And we become so broken that lake of fire imagery in my head, in the modern mindset, is the healing of all that. And the healing of all that is just revisiting all those scars, and clean them and make us new and so on. And some of those scars are, how many times you've spoken to people that said, no, I don't want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, but look, you need to talk about it, like, no, I don't want to talk about that. Because it's painful. So it is not a punishment from God. It is a healing process. But why does it hurt? Because it hurts. Because it's our brokenness that hurts. Because see what happens with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I believe that this earth is the war camp. That's why when I'm saying you don't need to go to the battlefield, if you're born here, you are in the battlefield. And if you are in the battlefield, we all exposed, and we all have an addition of post-traumatic stress disorders. Different experiences, different degrees, more functional than others, but we all damage from the traumatic disorders, from traumatic events in our lives. So what happens if you got a trauma in your leg? You have a trauma in your leg, the leg breaks, and then the leg tries to heal again, and it fuses, the bone fuses, through the fracture, it fuses. These days we have surgical procedures and x-rays and so on that can actually make that fuse correctly. But guess what? Up to not so many years ago, the leg will fuse and it will, you'll keep on going, you might limp, and now you have a post-traumatic condition. So the trauma was the breaking of your leg, and now you're limping. That leg was fused, that bone was fused, but when you push your finger through the muscle, you can feel that the bone is just not healed properly. Guess what? Let's say now you have access to a good orthopedic surgeon that is going to fix your leg, is going to fix your limping, and is going to fix that bone that is already fused. You already made your life through years with that. So post-traumatic life. Guess what? That doctor needs to break that bone again because he didn't fuse well. He didn't fuse in a healthy manner. He needs to break that bone again. And then once the bone is broken again, he will align it. He will get the X-ray, will align it, and he will fuse it properly, and it will take time to heal and so on. So that's literally what God will do. Our traumatic disorder is based on traumatic warfare, coming onto this earth, and basically that lake of fire, the wine press, or we can use infinite analogies, infinite illustrations that will mean the same thing. In the one that I will use is, so he will get all our broken bones that have healed incorrectly because of trauma in this earth, and he will break them all, and it will align them correctly, and we will recover, and we will stop limping, and we'll stop dragging ourselves, affected by all those traumas, because there will be a good, clean heal of every bone. So it's another illustration. It can be added. Okay.
I wanted to say that if you read verse 10 in chapter 14, it says that the son should drink the apple go go out with a mixture into the cup of, and he should be covered with fire and bishop in the presence of the Holy Angel in the presence of the Lamb. I wanted to say that that would be the like of Paul would be in the presence of Jesus, the Lamb of God. And if God would be in the like of fire, how can we die? He is made to see the fire and fire to be with us and to help us in this healing process. He will be with us in that process.
Good point too. So it will be I mean, I believe it's in the book of James. It says every good gift and every perfect gift comes from above. And all of a sudden he's going to give us a cup that is like snake poison or something. Yes, it's the cup of Jesus, the pure blood of Christ. God cannot give evil, because that will make him evil. And somehow, there's that little verse that is so misinterpreted when he says, that he will do the strange thing. Have you heard of the strange thing that God will do at the end? He's good, but he will kill everybody because it's a strange thing that he will do. And it's like, okay, well, then I said to those people with that kind of theology, so you believe in the yin and the yang, because the yin and the yang is basically it. The white has a little dot on the white part of the yin and yang emblem, and the black has a little white there. So God is light, but it will be a time in history which, rather than give you a good gift, it will give you a poisonous drink. Rather than give you a drink that will heal you, will give you a drink that will poison you. But it will only do it once, because it's a strange thing for God. It doesn't do it often. Oh, come on. They are the same people that when they talk about sin and how we need to stay away from all sin, he's like, oh, imagine your mother, he makes you a cookie and he has all organic ingredients in that cookie and a good organic flour and a good organic butter and a good organic sugar and everything else, and he's making an unsack cookie and this, that, and the other, and then he just puts a little bit of dog's poo in it. Will you eat it? They are the same people that use that illustration. Will you eat it if the most delicious dish has a little bit of dog's excrement in it? Well, obviously, the obvious question is, well, no, I wouldn't eat it. So why would I swallow a God that is good 99.9999%, and 0.00001% is going to treat me as an excrement, and is going to behave as Hitler in the worst case scenario, or as a nutcase? So, again, we need to, we'll finish now. I'm just looking at the time. We need to sort of reconsider how much of the old thinking is impairing us to flourish in the new, bigger thinking. Because if we try to hold two things together, you can't be holding the nice, beautiful birthday cake with a little bit of excrement, don't eat it. And at the same time, but I said my God that is good most of the time, in which one day when he would just be unhinged on a very strange behavior. No, we can't do that. You can't continually do that. And unfortunately, religion will try to, for above everything, to defend itself. I don't believe they are the followers of Christ's teachings, the responsible for all the deaths that Christianity, under the name of Christianity, has been accumulated all through the centuries. I believe are the disciples of religion, because religion will do anything to survive. Religion will do anything to, it will burn heretics on the stake. It will stone people. It will just, align itself with government powers. It will do anything that it needs to in order to survive. I don't call that Christianity. Unfortunately, that religion has put a coat over religion has actually, as a wolf has dressed itself with lamb's clothing, and it has called itself religion. But we all know that if we want to compare Hitler's numbers, Mussolini, Stalin numbers, the Mao Revolution numbers of killings, and you want to compare that with what religion has done in the name of Christianity, the biggest killer is actually religion in the name of Christ. Is the biggest killer by far. I suppose because he had more centuries to do so, but he's definitely the biggest killer. And today, your denominations might not kill their members, but they might, they might shut them down if they have a different opinion. They will excommunicate them. They will give them a cold shoulder. They will just declare them persona non grata among themselves, and so on. That's okay. But the good thing is that I want to talk to those people and tell them, now you just left a little tiny family. Now you just embracing the bigger one, which is 8 billion people on this earth. So sorry.
I think that universal restoration is the best ending for the plan of salvation.
And
then God's character will be vindicated when He saves everyone.
Yeah. We are, if we start looking at the world as an experience that causes post-traumatic distress disorder, and we still have to function, because that's the thing, isn't it? It's not that we have a post-traumatic stress disorder and we don't have to function. We still have to function. We still have to pay the bills. We still need to, be the husbands that we need to be the wives that we need to be the sons, be the daughters that we need to be the employee or the employer that we need to be, and things like that. We still need to pay taxes, and so on. So we still have to function. And if we look at humanity as trying to do their best they can with their crisis that they're dealing with, looking forward for that cleansing, looking forward for that healing, not just of me. I just want to see humanity as humanity really will be, without all the post-traumatic stress disorder. We know that 6 months old babies are not racist. 60 years old, those babies grow up, they turn 60, and they might be racist. So racism is a response of a post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's manifested in racism, narcissism. Narcissism and egocentrism are actually manifestations of post-traumatic stress disorder. That's why a person becomes a compulsive narcissist, because of a traumatic stress, a traumatic event in their lives. So if we're just looking at the narcissist, we're not looking at the root of the cause. And I believe, and that I'll borrow that statement, that God will actually just cut the root, burn the whole thing, branches and root. It will of the problem. Okay. So thank you very much for being there for this conversation. Thank you for those that brought some questions. Once we got it uploaded online, we'll pass Sarah the link, and may God bless you. I know that every one of you are pushing through in your post-traumatic stress disorders, in personalizing your own particular experience. We move forward. We keep on learning, because some of those things, we can still deal here. The bigger things he will have to deal with, but the way in which we deal some of those things here is just by keep on learning, keep on reading things, illustrating things. There's a great book called From Struggling to Thriving, post-traumatic stress disorder, from Struggling to Thriving. Great book, great manual to actually, at least the things that we can deal with from our traumatic experiences in life that makes us respond in a particular way, talking about free will. Our previous traumatic experience will condition our response today. In Spain, we've got a saying: if you have been burned by boiling milk, then you see a cow and you run away, because now you've seen a cow after, and your response to see the cow is preconditioned because at some point you got burned with boiling milk. In the same way, a woman that has been in a domestic violence situation will be at work, and if she is a nurse, will be at work, and a male will just go and very gently tap the shoulder, and that person's response is not based on her free will, will be based on her post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's preconditioned. So at the end of the day, it's like our decisions are more reactions to our current situation based on previous experiences. All right. May God bless you. We're just going to stop the recording here.